Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where I am actually quite sick, but that doesn't stop morning movie news, at least this week. And this week is a doozy, because of course the Oscars are on Sunday, and there's lots of Oscar coverage coming up, as well as that Empire magazine Civil War cover with a whole bunch of new information, etc., etc. And I'm going to be working very hard, despite my cold, to stay on top of all of it. So to get things off to a good start, I'm actually in the office on Sunday, and this has been filmed early Sunday night. So if any news breaks that's like major, look for me to cover it in a separate video. But today, Morning Movie News is actually going to focus on some very female-centric movie news stories, which, don't worry, I think you will be interested in, even if you aren't interested in women in film. All right, so what are the stories? Well, the first one, this is very interesting. Emma Watson announced over the weekend that she is going to take a break from acting. And she can afford to do that because Beauty and the Beast doesn't come out until February 2017. So she's got a really big movie in the can, so she doesn't have to worry about falling off of people's radars. Because as soon as that trailer hits or some set photos, they've done a very good job keeping that under wraps because they shot it on a sound stage. She is going to be able to be in the public eye despite not working. So it's a great time to take a break if one chooses to do so. Now, we'll talk about her break in just a moment, but I would suspect she might be taking a break because Disney's like, please, don't do any more damage to your box office resume. I mean, Emma Watson has really struggled post-Harry Potter, with the exception of landing the role of Belle in Disney's live-action Beauty and the Beast. And tying into that, she's actually announced that while she takes time off to focus on herself, she will be reading a book a week. How very Belle of her. And that will sound great when she goes on the publicity tour for the movie. She's like, I actually like to read too. I read a book a week for like a year. That's pretty awesome. However, if I were the Disney publicity department, I would not be happy about what else she will be doing with her time. And that is focusing on feminism, which didn't work out so well for Jennifer Lawrence, who of course made quite a stand when it comes to equal pay, but found that people viewed her complaints as crocodile tears. So Emma Watson says that she's going to focus on feminism through her work with the UN and the He for She initiative, which basically means guys standing up for women's rights. And she took a lot of praise, but also flack for when she originally stepped out with that organization. So we'll see how it works for her over the year. If I were Disney, I'd be like, please just read books, focus on feminism after my movie comes out. But I'm curious, what do you think of Emma Watson deciding to do this? Why do you think that she would? How do you feel you're not going to see Emma Watson in anything new after Colonia, whatever that happened to, I believe, Regression, until Beauty and the Beast comes out in February 2017? And also, do you think this is a good use of her time? Also, I'd be very curious as to what rubs people the wrong way about feminism, right? I mean, why is it when someone like Jennifer Lawrence or Emma Watson is like, I'm going to stick up for women's rights, the resounding response usually is, shut the hell up. So anyway, I mean, I know it comes from a small yet very vocal group, or is it just something that seems like a small but vocal group, but is worryingly actually, much bigger beneath the surface, like the iceberg that sunk the Titanic, or the Hunger Games franchise. But anyway, let's move on to another actress who has a plum gig for Disney, and that's Emily Blunt, who was mentioned as someone who would be in contention for Mary Poppins when they said they were going to do another Mary Poppins, but now actually is in play. Variety reported this, and it was picked up, of course, across the world, because Emily Blunt has a lot of fans. She just unfortunately rarely has them show up at the box office to support her. I think that's shifting a little bit, but still, look at Into the Woods. It dramatically underperformed for a live-action fairy tale and for a musical. It was no Mamma Mia, it was no Les Mis. And Blunt, though, Blunt's an interesting choice. It's going to be directed by Rob Marshall, who directed not only, well, Disney loves him because of what he did with the Pirates franchise, resurrecting it with On Stranger Tides. So they said, hey, you want to make Into the Woods? We know you've been asking. And he's like, oh, thank you, Disney. I love you so much. And that turned out medium. It didn't even really win any awards. It got some nominations, but it wasn't huge. So I don't know why they're like, hey, let's have Rob do that again. I'd be like, go do something else, Rob. But they're like, no, do another Mary Poppins. I think because they're just making so much money off of live-action fairy tales that they're like, or live-action fantasy movies, that they're eager to get Mary Poppins in there. And it's a huge property. Now, personally, I feel that Emily Blunt is a pretty solid choice for the role. I think she's a wonderful singer, and I really like her personally. I liked her quite a bit in Into the Woods, and actually all the movies that she's made. But I think you just can't deny her inability to connect with audiences overall. The box office numbers just don't materialize. I'd also be curious if this is going to take her out of Captain Marvel, although she is about to have a child, which could also hurt her. I'm sure those, Depression-era London big dresses will help her quite a bit in transitioning out of pregnancy to making this movie. But we're going to talk about Captain Marvel actually with the viewer question of the day. So anyway, I think that Emily Blunt creatively is a very good choice. And if she were going to go to Broadway in the role, I think she would do quite well. But I think that having her at the box office is very difficult. I think it's going to be very important, hugely important, who they cast as Bert, if he's going to stick around, and also the other people in the cast. Now, they have clarified that, she's not supposed to replace, they're not going to do a remake, basically, of Mary Poppins, but she is replacing Julie Andrews as the character. It's going to be Mary Poppins 20 years later in Depression-era London, as I just said, but she's going to be revisiting the Banks family, so they are going to stay connected to that storyline. However, I would like to point out that Saving Mr. Banks, one of my 3 favorite films of all time, does a wonderful job talking about how that isn't a story about Mary Poppins, but about Mr. Banks. And it's very powerful. And I think it shows why that movie resonates so strongly with moviegoers, even if they don't realize it. Or, want to even see Saving Mr. Banks, which didn't do very well and also wasn't a strong awards contender, but it's a really powerful movie. And we've talked a lot about, the importance of dads and fathers. We just recently talked about Robert Downey Jr. as Geppetto, how that would be nice to bring some needed attention to that. And it's a shame that Saving Mr. Banks didn't succeed in doing what it was setting out to do, which was just that. But I think that to wrestle Mary Poppins away from the narrative of saving the dad, which was what P.L. Travers intended and what Disney had to be made to understand, would be unfortunate. I think bottom line, they're probably going to want to see how Huntsman Winter's War does. But, there's not a huge number of actresses in the right age range who can sing, who are somewhat, well lauded critically. So Emily Blunt doesn't have a lot of competition. They could get a newcomer, that could work, but it's tough. Luckily, few actresses become box office draws, and Scarlett Johansson can't be everyone. I also don't even know if Scarlett Johansson can sing, and she's already become an action hero. But I'm curious, what do you think of Emily Blunt? And be sure to answer both as a fan and as a business person. All right, so, because I think Winter's War is having a really hard time getting any traction with audiences. We'll see how it does when it actually hits theaters, but, Emily Blunt, she has yet to really break that curse. All right, now the third story of the day is about a male and female talent, and this is that more and more talent is heading to the small screen that's supposed to be quote-unquote movie talent. So we've had like Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman, Vince Vaughn. They're all going to the small screen. You have James Marsden going to the small screen, Ed Harris. Now I think you would see a trend here, and that those actors all are having trouble with their careers, and they really need to reinvent themselves, just like Matthew McConaughey did with True Detective. But these latest people who are going to the small screen are odd because their careers seem just fine. One is Amy Adams, and the other is Daniel Craig, who I guess is just so desperate to get away from James Bond that he will do this huge television commitment. Although word is that MGM is like, we'll wait for you, and he's like, God damn it. But anyway, Amy Adams wants to do something with Gillian Flynn, who is the writer of Gone Girl, and it's called Sharp Objects. And it's a crazy, weird, feminist story about Amy Adams, coming out of a psych ward, and she's a journalist, and I'm like, nobody likes her as Lois Lane. Why would you want her to keep playing a journalist? But anyway, she goes back to her hometown, where her crazy Grey Gardens mother lives, and her stepsister, who's 13 and really popular, and Amy Adams' character never was. So there's tension there, and some unpopular girls have died, and so Amy Adams is like, I relate more to the unpopular girls than my popular weird half-sister, who I haven't seen in a long time. And you're like, duh. But I don't know, it seems weird. But I think Gillian Flynn had some interesting ideas with Gone Girl, even though I think it really vilified women to some degree and ex-girlfriends. But, I digress. I think that Gone Girl was undoubtedly a hit, and you would want to be associated with what Gillian Flynn was doing next. But if it was TV, maybe it's not for Amy Adams. Although I would say that her film career also not so hot. She seems to be being overtaken by Jessica Chastain, who's getting all the big roles these days, which I find weird because Jessica Chastain is super box office poison. Wow, you think Emily Blunt is bad. Jessica Chastain is instant box office death. So we'll see if people regret hiring her for their upcoming films. She landed the Aaron Sorkin Molly's Game film, it looks like. That's ridiculous. But anyway, so Daniel Craig, this is a 20-part series called Purity, and it's from Jonathan Franzen, remember him, and Scott Rudin. Now, I think that's out to all the big names. It's got Daniel Craig in it, who wouldn't want that? But it seems to me a little bit like I don't know. I feel like they have talent associated with these that haven't made a name for themselves in TV. Like, one of the reasons that The People vs. O.J. Simpson is so good is that Ryan Murphy knows the medium. And, I think that House of Cards worked very well, but that's because, Kevin Spacey took such a strong hand in it. And of course, David Fincher, duh. And then I think that the Netflix shows have done very well for Marvel, just in general, but also Marvel, because they've had very strong talent associated with it. So I feel like this new slate of shows is like relying a little bit too heavy on motion picture name talent, and I think we might actually reach the peak of people transitioning. Because even look, Billy Bob Thornton and Fargo, look at the cast of Fargo season 1 and 2. They all need help, and they all got help, but none of them are as on top of their game, or supposedly as on top of their game, as Amy Adams and Daniel Craig. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, the viewer question comes from JJ's World, who had a whole bunch of cute little ghost emojis and said, "Boo, did I get your attention?" You did, JJ's World. So JJ says, "Grace, my question is, do you think that the Agent Carter creators could direct the Captain Marvel movie with the success of their comic? If not, who else could direct it? Please answer. You're the best, and I love your show every day after school." That makes me so happy, JJ's World. I can't tell you how much. So great question. Now, I actually recently mentioned this new Captain Marvel comic because I thought it was really good. I actually tweeted about it, and I feel this is a wonderful blueprint for a Captain Marvel movie. And Michelle Fazekas, one of the writers of the comic and showrunner on Agent Carter, even tweeted me back and shared the tweet, which I thought was awesome. So they're very good at connecting with their fans and online media. So they have all those boxes checked. But here's the thing. They haven't directed anything. They have an excellent background. They were on Reaper, writers on Reaper. I loved Reaper. Dollhouse, but they have the Joss Whedon stamp of approval. Terra Nova was actually a pretty good show. And now, of course, they're doing Agent Carter, which is not a great... I know some of you are enjoying it quite a bit, but it's not really setting the television landscape on fire, right? Neither, though, to be fair, is the Captain Marvel comic. I really liked it, but I don't see people talking about it like crazy, right? Although I do feel that... comic book media in general has to do a better job of getting comics out there. Like, the only thing I think people know that everyone loves is Saga. And for a while, Scott Snyder's Batman was really hot, but that's lost kind of a lot of momentum and prestige as well. I don't really hear people talking about comics these days, which is unfortunate, and that's, I think, one of the reasons that video games are wrestling those characters away from the comic book medium. But anyway, so Michelle Fazekas and Tara Butlers don't have any directing background, but I think they would do a wonderful job writing the movie. I think that would be a wonderful idea, and I really do still stand by the fact that I think Captain Marvel #1 and #2 that have come out so far are a great setup for the Captain Marvel movie. They really distinguish the character from other Marvel heroines. Now, what I wanted to loop in here is that a number of people have asked me if Elizabeth Debicki might be playing Carol Danvers in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. She was announced as part of the cast. I said maybe she'd make a good Death. Some people said a good Moondragon, but now some people are saying, well, maybe she's Carol Danvers, who of course gets her powers from an alien race, and so it makes perfect sense that she would maybe debut in a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Here's the thing. I really like Elizabeth Debicki, but I think she's a very cold persona. She has no warmth. And I think that Carol Danvers needs to have warmth, especially because Scarlett Johansson has her spy who came in from the cold, right? And also Scarlet Witch is very damaged. I think that Carol Danvers, in my opinion, needs to be a really well-adjusted female character. You can't have all the female characters hitting the exact same note. That's really old school. I would like to think that entertainment has evolved beyond that, and it's just not representative of what women are actually like. So I think Debicki actually kind of has the look when you think about it. I think she could rock Carol Danvers like Faux Hawk, but I think that she's just too cold to really be the star of a franchise. I don't see Elizabeth Debicki winning over people and saying, I want an Elizabeth Debicki action figure or t-shirt. I just don't see it. I think that, we were surprised by Scarlett Johansson, but, she had a fan base going in. She's been very aggressive as a talent, trying to redefine herself instead of just being the sexy one. But Elizabeth Debicki has been unable on her own to make any waves, to redefine herself, to find a niche. And so I think not only does she probably seem very cold, but she might not be a very aggressive talent. The best talent is also very savvy business-wise, because they can then help position themselves and recognize good opportunities. So Debicki hasn't shown that ability. So I wouldn't pick her as Carol Danvers. I think there's some chance she could be, but if she is, I think it's a bad choice. But I do think that Michelle Fazekas and Tara Butlers would be wonderful writing the script for Captain Marvel, and I would like to see a male director, quite frankly. I don't want to have this where only people of the same ethnicity and gender work on certain properties. I think that, you want to mix because you want the character to seem like they're for everyone. And I think that Francis Lawrence did a wonderful job with Katniss, George Miller with Furiosa, and I think that Captain Marvel has enough hurdles to get over because she doesn't have a really strong connection with fans. I know some Captain Marvel fans will get upset about that, but really, honestly, who beyond her hardcore fan base really knows who Carol Danvers is, besides the base for Rogue's power set, which everyone would rather see Rogue sporting than Carol Danvers, right? But anyway, that Marvel will have to change that if they want to see the Captain Marvel movie succeed, and I don't think DeBecki is the person to do that, but I think Fazekas and Butlers are the ones to write it. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. I apologize for being very sick. Hopefully it made the show a little punchier, but I hope you enjoyed it. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.